right, welcome to the stage, everybody. She's a veteran from the Came from New York shows, as is Nancy Richards. And I used to do this thing called the Battle of the Boroughs, which I used to have. It was Queens versus the Bronx, Brooklyn versus Manhattan, and Staten Island versus Staten Island. She was my go-to girl because she was always wearing red and ready to rumble. Please welcome to the stage, Alexis Staten.
Hi guys. Hi. I was just trying to figure out what it would be like to, in the middle of sex, figure out that someone's from Staten Island, and I feel like it would go like, "This room is really maroon and gold. Did you go to Farrell? I went to Notre Dame. This is good." So hi. Okay. So it's 1997, and my grandmother is telling mafia stories again, because she likes to do that. Especially when I've brought home a really nice Jewish boy from Pittsburgh who has no idea what he stumbled into. And my grandmother, she tells these macabre stories all the time as if they're hilarious. So like some of the non-mafia stories would be about like when you remember when Uncle Billy killed the cat by bashing it into the concrete, and then we tried to bury it and it came back alive? That's one of my Nana's favorite stories. The almost murder of a cat. She loves that story. Another story she loves is I remember when I was a little girl. So this is like, Staten Islanders we're just very straightforward, nothing, so she's like, I'm eating my grilled cheese sandwich and she's like, I found my father's grave. He was a terrible father. I peed on it. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's what you do when your father's not a nice guy, you pee on his grave. Okay, I get that. So, Nana's telling all these stories. This really nice boy has come to visit me. I had gone to Passover at his family, more on that later. And then he came to Easter at my house. So Nana's talking about, she's like, whose parole party was it? Was it Albert Anastasia's parole party? Yeah, I think it was out. I'm like, Nana, oh my God. And she's telling stories about how they used to have the gambling parties, like these mafia gambling parties, and they would bring the money for the party in the roll of Italian bread. So they would put the money at the bottom and they'd have a half a roll of Italian bread at the top to hide it, and somebody would say, go get the bread. And the bread was the money for the party. So I'm just like horrified though, because she thinks these things are hilarious. I'm like, well, people died. I don't know. And so basically, it's interesting because you never realize how much of a New Yorker you are, what it means, or what your culture is until you leave it. So I really sort of saw this from a different perspective. I grew up with these stories being funny to me too, because that's how I grew up. But then you go to Pittsburgh, and people just live totally differently. Pittsburgh is where I went to college. People are just so different there. They're much more trusting. They don't talk about like dead cats coming back to life and think that it's funny. When I was in Pittsburgh, my real first experience of realizing the difference of being a New Yorker was, I was going to the movies with my friends, and we stopped into this place to say, like, where's the movie theater? And the guy at the place said, oh, what movie are you going to see? And I was like, serial killer? He's going to follow us to the movies and try to murder us. Because that's how I grew up in Staten Island, is that like, if somebody wants to know where you're going, they're probably going to tail you and try to murder you. That's how I was raised. And there were lots of crazy things going on when I was a little kid. We had the Zodiac Killer, the one in the 90s. There was
Son of Sam.
I'm too young for Son of Sam, but there was the 90s Zodiac Killer. There was the dart guy, the blow dart guy, who was blowing darts at women's asses. I don't know if people remember that one. There was the Bay Ridge pillowcase fondler. I don't know if you remember that one. He would break into your house and like fondle your boobs and something with a pillowcase. I don't know, he'd fondle your pillowcase, something like that.
Absolutely.
It was like living in the Marvel universe. It was like being in Batman.
I'm taking medication and it's all good.
Yeah, growing up. Now you're okay. Good. That's good. Yeah. So it's kind of like that. It was very exciting and strange and scary growing up in New York at that time. And so I wasn't a very trusting person. And I don't really think that the culture is very conducive to trust. In fact, on the bus from the ferry on the way over here, I overheard a guy saying very loudly into his cell phone, "Is he sick? Well, make sure she's not poisoning him. Make sure she's not poisoning him and taking out an insurance policy or doing anything stupid like that. Okay, keep your eyes open. Love you, bye. On the bus, I was like, wow, that would be my first thought. Like, is she poisoning him? I don't know, I hope not. I wanted to be like, I hope not, guy. Sorry. I'm gonna look here for a second. So anyway, the thing that was interesting for me in this experience of having this really nice boy come to Staten Island for Easter was that Dan's family was very cultured. Dan, this guy from Pittsburgh, they're like Chilean, so they were speaking like 3 languages at Passover. They're speaking Hebrew, they're speaking Spanish, they're speaking English. And here's my grandmother just talking about like, your Uncle Joe shot him in the foot because he leaned on his car. And I was like, oh my God, it's not funny, that's horrifying. So
that's cool.
It was pretty interesting. So he's like, and it's bad enough that everyone, because of Seinfeld in Pittsburgh, is trying to say all these New York-y things in their non-New York way. They're like, yada, yada, ha, 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 and I'm like, yeah, I get it, yada, yada, right, that's funny, New York, whatever. And then The Sopranos came out, and everybody's like, is he your paisan? And I'm like, oh my God, please stop, pay me. If you're gonna use Italian words, like, pay me a dividend or something, because you're mangling. Is he your Goomba? I'm like, stop talking. So anyway, so Dan, and it's that kind of a thing where they're sort of like trying to mock, our culture here. But fortunately, there are a couple things that they didn't get, which I really appreciate, things that have not gone out into the wider culture and being co-opted. Like, who knows what going with means? You know what going with means?
Sure, yeah.
Right. It means making out, right? It means, when I was growing up, if you went with someone, somebody was like,
going out.
Not going out though, it was making out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going out with someone, but if Chris wants to go with you, Chris wants to go with you. You're going to take a walk and you're going to make out. That's what it means. Nobody else in the whole world uses going with that way, but I treasure it. Or does anybody else say, she thinks who she is? Are you familiar with that? She thinks who she is, or he thinks who he is. So nobody knows what that means either, but you all know what it means. It means they're like the person is full of themselves. So anyway, Dan says to me, why don't you show me some of Staten Island? And things are heating up, at Easter, and Nana's, I'm a little weirded out by what Nana's saying. He's like, show me something nice on Staten Island. So I'm like, oh, I'll take him to the beach. I'll take him to Midland Beach. It's where I used to have my soccer games at Miller Field my whole life. Everybody's laughing. I thought it was pretty. What? What's wrong with Midland Beach? All right, well, you guys, I needed you guys to help me on my Staten Island dating excursions. I didn't know.
Should have gone to Travis.
I'll take him to Midland Beach. So, I wish I knew you guys when I was in college, because I took him to Midland Beach. It's clearly a mistake, as we'll all see in a minute. Because I take him to Midland Beach, and if you've been to Midland Beach by Miller Field, you know that you kind of drive down. When I was a kid, it was like there was like that craft store, a big craft store on the right there, and you go down this street, and there's like a little like blockade, and then you have to turn left, and when you turn left, it's Miller Field like this forever. And then it's the ocean, the beach, right? So we're driving, and now keep in mind I'm trying to get Dan away from Italian Staten Island stereotypes. Boy, did I make a mistake. I'm from the North Shore. That's where I'm from, Westerly. I'm from Westerly. I should have taken to Westerly Park. I have no idea.
Abandoned bungalow.
I've told this story outside of Staten Island, and nobody else immediately judged me for Midland Beach, but I'm so glad that everybody gets it. So we're driving, and we see some guys hanging out. You might call these people Guidos.
Drinking Michelob.
It was probably like Zima at the time. It was the 90s. It was probably Zima. Yeah, exactly. And so they're hanging out. These Guidos are hanging out there, and we make a left turn, and now here we are driving this way. And Dan goes, and there's nothing like being on a little little drive with your sweetheart and having him say, hey, very calmly, like a Pittsburgher, hey, does that guy have a baseball bat? And the Guido is chasing us with a baseball bat. And people have asked me why. Why? I'm like, why does a Guido chase a person with a baseball bat? I don't know, it's what they do. It's attached, he's got it, so he's using it. So I'm like, oh fuck, this was a mistake. I'm not even thinking about the stereotypes at this point, I'm thinking about preserving my life. And so, I did have some good instincts though. I realized that at the end of the road, because we can't go back, it's a dead end, I know that. I've known that because I go there all the time. And so I realized that at this dead end it says, do not enter on like penalty of law or something like that, like on penalty of law. And I say, Dan, drive through that gate. Just drive through this opening, just drive. There'll be a cop there waiting to give us a ticket. Just drive. We'll get caught. We'll be safe. Do it. And he does it, and there was a cop. I was right. Native New York instincts. I expect serial killers. I expect cops. So he does do it, and we're fine. And the cop comes up, and we tell him there's a guy chasing us with a baseball bat, and etc. And if my grandmother was telling this story, it would have ended with, and that's how I met your grandfather. But that is not at a time. Yeah. Okay. So just quickly, that same trip home, I ended up getting chased by a homeless lady with a tennis racket in Manhattan. Also in a separate incident, which I will just leave at that. But I remember at the time thinking, oh, in Manhattan they chase you with a snotty tennis racket? They think who they are.